Hi, I'm Mandy Leatherwood. In this episode of Ask the, we'll be speaking with economic development about some upcoming changes for business owners. Hello and welcome. We're here with Celina Morales, Deputy Director from Economic Development, to talk to us about MRAs and tax codes. Hi Celina, thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me, Mandy.
Great. I know recently City Council has talked about redeveloping certain areas of our city and adopted some MRAs. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us what those are and what that means?
Of course. So an MRA is a Metropolitan Redevelopment Area, and it's an area within the city that we designate that has underdevelopment or blight, and so it allows us to use specific resources to help reinvest back into that community, and there's different tools that we can use to help with that.
So is there a way or a funding mechanism for that infrastructure and that focused resources?
Yeah, so part of economic development's job is to find funding for those type of projects, whether they be for infrastructure, for grants and programming. We can do something like TIFs, which is part of a Metropolitan Redevelopment Area, and that's where GRT that's collected within that specific area can get reinvested back into it. So it takes a while for that money to grow, and every year as it grows, we're able to do projects based off that gross receipts tax.
So we have a couple of MRAs, a handful of them. Can you give us an idea where some of those areas are?
Of course. So we have 6 new ones. We had one that was designated a few years ago, which was our downtown. The new ones will be in El Paseo, South Solano, West Picacho, the Apodaca Lift-Up area, the Mesquite area, and the Amador Proximo area.
So when you talked about putting resources into those areas, how do we decide what we're going to do in those areas?
So as a department, we're going to create an internal committee that has staff and directors and subject matter experts who will then determine the priority, staff capacity, and the funding for those projects. We then take them to council for them to determine, based on our recommendations, what projects we want to start first and how we want to use funding for those projects.
Excellent. And so speaking about that funding, you mentioned TIF and GRT. Mm-hmm. How does that happen? How do we get funding through GRT for those areas?
So Economic Development's been working with the Taxation and Revenue Department for New Mexico, and starting July 1st, there will be new tax codes that businesses are able to report using the TAP portal. So typically when you're a business and you're going to claim your gross receipts tax, there would only be one location code, which is Las Cruces. Now there will be a different location code for each area. And it spells out what area and also the map. You can zoom in to see if your business is within the area. And that'll go live July 1st, so it'll kind of provide more clarity on which MRA your business falls in and also the tax code to use.
So if there's a different tax code, are businesses paying different tax rates?
No, it does not affect the tax rates at all. So this is something separate from the actual amount that's going to be allocated for GRT. This is just location based.
So all businesses in Las Cruces will pay the same tax rate, but then a portion of it will go to help the surrounding area?
That is correct, yes.
That's excellent.
Yes.
So how, you mentioned the portal, what is that? How do businesses find it?
So we have a link on our website at lascruces.gov under business resources that breaks this information more down, especially with the areas and the actual code they'll be using. And there's also a YouTube video. So businesses typically know how to use the TAP portal because they report on these taxes monthly and sometimes quarterly. So it's the same process. We will also be doing business outreach where our team will be going out to every business within the MRA to be able to educate them on the new process. We have our economic development newsletter that explains this as well. And so just educating the businesses on how to do this. They can also contact us on our economic development department phone line if they need help. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. It's really great that you're going out and you're talking to people. I know that as part of the MRAs, we're not necessarily going to be jumping into all 6 areas doing projects at the same time. That's going to be kind of a process that happens over several years, but are all the tax codes starting at the same time?
Correct. They're all starting July 1st of this year. And we plan to adopt a plan every year for each MRA, so it's going to take a couple years for each area to have their own plan, so it'll help us spread out and spread resources.
But for say the areas that are going to be adopted a little bit later, the plan, that funding that's that's going into GRT now, that'll be held for those projects?
That is correct, yes.
Excellent.
Yes.
So they'll be building up sort
Yes,
of
yeah, they
a
can.
funding mechanism.
That is correct, Mandy, yes.
That's excellent. What else do businesses need to know about these tax codes or anything along those lines?
Really, that's the basics of it. I would say if they want to be more involved in Metropolitan Redevelopment Area, it's really reliant on community input and how it affects them as business owners, as residents. So to watch out for our social media pages and our website. Every time we have a public event, it is their opportunity to say what projects they want in their community and what they feel is priority. So I would say just look out for our website and those updates. That way they can be a part of the planning process.
Excellent. And you want them to be involved, but if they have any questions or they want to reach out to you, what's the best way to get in touch with you and your team?
They can call us at our phones at 575-528-3048, or our website has the email address as well.
Excellent. Is there anything else that we needed to share today about MRAs or about the tax codes?
No, I think that's it.
Excellent. Well, we really appreciate your time coming to talk about this really complicated subject and letting our businesses know that there are resources to help them through this.
Of course. Thank you, Mandy.
Thank you so much.